Greetings and good morning, everybody. Welcome to the High Roller Stream. You get a chance to meet the high rollers, who there are plenty of, and hopefully you get a chance to enjoy their perspective and thoughts. Today, we're focusing primarily on film critique and, just people who have film critiques and analysis on various films. I think reviewers get a short get a short amount of rope when it comes to whether or not they do it consistently well or not. And I think some of the best are here on YouTube, and I have friends that do that. But at the same time, you have a lot of superficial reviews and reviewers out there that just basically more self-promote than they do talk about the actual business of film and whether or not one's good or not. So let's get the perspective of three other gentlemen who have arrived here early, maybe some more later to show up here. We've got just under an hour to get out this conversation, so let's start it right away. We have our good friend Hoove joining us today. How are you, Hoove?
I am doing well, Culture. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm glad you're here. And again, a reminder to everybody, this is a public stream. These are high rollers. They are prepared to have a good conversation with us today. And this idea came to us from Hoove today, so I love that. Of course, somebody who speaks very well of movie critique and has a solid understanding of it is Lester. How you doing, my friend? You good?
I'm doing all right. Upheaval at work and working through all of that since last week. And let's just say, hopefully, I can weasel a little bit more out of a pay raise doing two other people's jobs. I will say no more than that.
Yeah. You probably don't need to be doing other people's jobs, but I understand where you're coming from. I often found myself doing everybody else's job, so I know where you're coming from. But you can check out Lester on the Skeptic Tank, although I don't think you've had much time for that recently, have you?
No, there's just a lot going on within the last year. Wrestling with what I call Cardi Beatus.
Yes.
And what have you.
Yeah.
Benefits and all that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just glad that you're back, and I'm glad that you're here, and I just continue to hope that daily you get better. And finally, one of my friends who is constantly trying to get me to play video games, which I don't have time for, and lately have been prevented from doing because I've been dealing with my own trials and tribulations, is my pal Morgan King, who's been here forever. How you doing, Morgan?
Doing good. I can understand that feeling of doing multiple people's jobs, doing that a lot at work myself. When you only have two people at work and your second coworker's off sick for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, doesn't help.
Yeah, it's not as much fun. But what is fun is talking about movies. And I think everybody here, including everybody in the chat, of whom there are many, has their own opinion about movies. Everybody has a favorite movie or television show. And I think that that's like something about the human experience, right? You see something that you connect with. It's a moment in time that has been captured in film or television. You can go back and watch again and again, or at least you hope so, until they are doing digital edits midstream so they can insert ads, which is coming to a screen near you if it hasn't already. Wait until they go back into classic. Yeah, wait till they go back into classic movies and remove the cigarette ads and replace them with something else like the latest AI. But look, I'm going to say what I have to say about films, and then I'm going to set you guys loose.
Okay.
I've enjoyed films since I was a very young one. The film that set off my brain was obviously Star Wars. I've talked about that more than a few times, and back then it was called Star Wars, not A New Hope. But that was the film that lit the fuse for me. I'd seen many others, of course. Being a young person, I'm sure I'd been taken to the film and the cinema many times. But being able to remember a film and then go and see it multiple times, I think that's the first film I ever saw multiple times as well. It just made an impression on me. It made me get more interested about how they did things, how they made the special effects and everything else, including, attaching M80s to my, my Star Wars toys at one point in time. So, back then we played with our toys, kids. But, we also used our 8mm camera that we'd swiped from our grandfather to try to do our own thing. But I became very interested in film, and it was all because of one film. And from that point forward, that kind of set the bar for my expectations when I go and see something. pretty high bar. But fortunately, technology moved along, and they were able to make films more and more realistic, make better special effects. They could blow things up better, that's for sure. And my love of film and cinema grew. So I went back, and when I was going to college, I went to film school. And for a short period of time, I thought that would be my path forward. It wasn't. But one of the things that clue you into whether or not you have a good or bad film teacher early on, your intro to film, is whether or not they start you with the classics. They start you from the beginning with Chaplin and an understanding of where cinema came from. So with all that in mind, when I look at a film, I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at, how does this relate to the dawn of film? How far have we come? Is this good storytelling? Did they use all the vehicles available to them to tell a story? And that's really kind of all going through my head as I sit there and I watch something. And there are rare occasions, and it doesn't happen very often, and this is where I'm going to leave it to you guys to pick up. There are times when I don't think about any of that because what I'm watching is so compelling, so good, something that takes me away from things. That's one of the few times that I'm going to give a film a 9 or a 10 on the 10-point scale. It's one of the few times that I'm going to give something a 4.5 or a 5 stars. That's it. That's the line. If you can pull me fully into something and capture me completely, you've made something spectacular. So when I give a review, that's my baseline. I'm anticipating you had a good story. You captured me so completely, I stopped paying attention to everything else. That's getting lost in something. And we don't have that escape anymore. It's very, very rare. And that's why I'm so against prequels. That's why I have difficulties with sequels, because it's almost impossible to compete with something that is an instant classic by producing a second one. It just never happens. So I'm going to leave it there with you guys, and let me know what shapes your opinion of a film and how you grade them, because I think it'll help us all understand how we all look at film. We'll start with Hoove because this was his idea. So please take it off.
Well, Culture, I'll tell you, I've been a fan of movies my whole life. My dad used to take me to the movies when I was very young. Oddly enough, he would take me to see the movies that he wanted to see. He thought it was probably worthwhile to explain the more adult content than for him to suffer through things like Disney films. So I got to see things like Rollerball and The Exorcist and The Godfather when I was a child. And so I got used to seeing good movies, good storytelling. And for me, that's what really counts, is a good story and a good ending. Doesn't have to always be a happy ending, but it's got to make sense. It's got to be a good ending. And do we get that today? Sometimes we don't. What really made me think about this idea is increasingly, and I don't know, like I said, maybe this is just me, but it seems like reviewers in general have become increasingly more critical of the minutia of the films. All the different plot things that don't make sense. They wasted time with this. They did that. They did this. It might still be a perfectly serviceable B movie that's worth watching. And I just don't like the idea that a lot of people might be seeing this stuff and going, you know what? Yeah, let's not bother with good. Let's wait for perfect, because perfect doesn't come along that often. So it's kind of what I was thinking. I don't know if anybody else thinks that way. But
I think that you're right. I mean, perfect does not come along very often. And again, that's why, like I said, I finished up with my exceptional movies, are the ones I'm completely captured by. I don't think we have many of those anymore. And I think that's very telling. I also think that Ribby Hoove sent a $2 super chat to let you know that Hoove, good to see you. So there you go. Yeah, I understand the situation.
I won't see her again until Wednesday.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Well, I hope everything's holding together there and nothing burned down. So
no 911 calls, no indictments, no anything. It's been quiet.
Speaking of indictments, Lester, you had quite a bit to say about films as we got started. You kind of indicting some of the ideas that film critics have had over a period of time. Speaking of the indictment word, I'm going to set you loose on what you think a film critique is, and what a good film is, and kind of what your scale is as well. I'm curious to hear that from all of you guys.
Okay, so it's interesting when we all try to, I don't know if all of us were like this, but we all try to go through certain paths in lives, occupational treadings, if you will. I didn't know you went to film school. I didn't venture to go to film school, but I had taken one film class in junior college because it was part of a journalist degree I tried pursuing. Well, that fell through the cracks badly. I didn't like splicing tape, but that one film class was very informative. And then fast forward in my undergrad, as I was completing my English degree, I took a class called Major Critics. And even after that entire class, I flipped between two mindsets. Kant's view of the sublime, and then I forgot who the other guy was, but talking about form. Like the whole question was, what is art? Okay, so going back to what we had in the back room about reviewers, and a question I had posed on another person's stream, Troy, if he's watching, I don't know if he is, but I posed the question, are we at a point where we might regret having the internet the way it is now because of the wide accessibility of information? And because everyone's mother, brother, uncle, whatever, fill in the blank, any bloody fool can put together a review. And so it kind of devalues or decreases the value of a reviewer's job and function. I still remember how we used to weigh heavily on the likes of a Siskel and Ebert tandem or whatever other film reviewer we had of value, but everybody's doing it. And in some ways, I guess that's part of the cross we bear in terms of the wider landscape, because we're kind of grown into a skepticism of our authority figures, especially in the last 5 years. You know, so how one views a sense of the sublime, that's a very personal thing. I still think there's a degree of tension between objectivity and subjectivity, where I'll likely err on the side of objectivity, but that's a perspective-based thing, because I may not have been as informed as so-and-so in whatever lot of life. And when it comes to other contexts of genre, if you know what I mean. So my main bias might be martial arts movies, for example. So that's a genre that appeals to me. And after my supposed hiatus from my own channel, I've been nerding out on a guy called the Kung Fu Genius. And he talked about a lot of the Bruce Lee stuff. And after that scuttlebutt, I go, I want my good, accurate Bruce Lee biopic. And I'm still waiting, and I'm twiddling my thumbs. Because as I think about Dragon, I realize how inaccurate that movie was, and how it did David Carradine dirty when you think about that whole thing, that whole scene in that very movie. So it's just like, okay, what are we going to pick at? And you know, what's a good review? Again, it's like we're at a place where we're losing faith in the review process, in my mind anyway. So sorry to throw so much at you guys, but
no, I like I said, I mean, that's what we're doing here, is giving some perspective to what we think movie review should entail, and our perspective on what makes a good film. So I appreciate that. Last but not least, Morgan, I know you have some strong thoughts on what makes good films, but I know you have strong thoughts on what makes good video games as well. So give us some ideas on what you think of this process, and then we're going to talk about, you know, who we find to be more reliable as far as film critiques or critics go. Let's do that. Anyway, go ahead, Morgan. I think you're muted, sir.
Yes, I was muting because I was typing there.
No worries.
So reviews, before I joined all of this stuff, like Doomcock's channel, Midnight's Edge and stuff, I never paid attention to the detail things about making a movie or what goes into a movie. If the plot holes were there, those things kept me out of it. And then once I started joining the fandom, what we've done here, all of the stuff, like the movie, the lighting and all that other stuff started coming out through poking their head out because they weren't doing as much job. And reviewers, to me, their job is to help get a movie sold. Sorry, I am failing at this thought. I am so sorry.
No worries, my friend. I think that a lot of people woke up about films starting in about 2012, I would say, because we saw some serious significant changes in filmmaking. And I think we started paying a lot more attention to people who critiqued film because we were searching for answers to what had changed. So, does that inspire you to pursue that thought, Morgan?
So that's definitely where I started, was the pursuit of finding answers to why things were going the way like they did, like the Ghostbusters, 2016 Ghostbusters, and the reviewing of that. If you didn't watch it, you're part of this group here, the bad guys,
Right.
if you were. Reviews are supposed to make someone want to go see a movie. Like some of the stuff that Culture does his reviews on, some of them, like, yes, I would want to go and watch that movie.
Yep.
If he says it's good, I will definitely go and watch it. And now the ones that are getting paid that you see on TV and stuff, I don't trust them as much because you don't get that interaction like we do online.
Right. Yeah, and I think that that's the other part of the conversation, Morgan. And I think you've spot on. I mean, the opportunity to converse with somebody or find somebody that you trust that reviews a film, is kind of a nice guide. I think it's always. I think it's always good to find that one reviewer that you can say, okay, I'm pretty much in line with most of what they're thinking. You're never going to be in lockstep with anybody. I mean, and one of the reasons why my tagline is always, I saw a movie so you didn't have to, was to start off from the skeptical side of the equation. Because I'm always skeptical going into a film. I have to be. It's one of the ways to keep an open mind, right? And especially if it's a remake. And think about just how many remakes we've had just this year alone. Remakes or sequels or threequels or whatever, and prequels. So, and that's the problem is now the media companies have boiled everything down into a TV formula. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but for the most part, we rarely have film anymore. I mean, we have things that are trying to be films or pretending to be films.
Mm.
But as I think Lester pointed out when we were off stage before we got started, we're subjected to a lot of, rehashed garbage. That's not his words; those are my words. But and nothing follows the familiar structure of cinema. There's never really a beginning and end that starts you on your adventure. Oftentimes you're picking up in the middle, and that's been the biggest boon and bust for Marvel, right? Boon because everybody likes the continuing story. I mean, we all like serials. That's originally, the things that were introduced between films at the cinema when we were very young, and some of us weren't even born when that was happening. So those serials, like The Lone Ranger and many others that would appear between the films or before the films, would be something to engage people. An afternoon at the movies was a big deal back then. It should still be now. It just has been diminished because of the way that the corporate theaters have responded over the course of the last 5 decades. But you don't have a lot of art house theaters anymore. You don't have a lot of local town owned theaters and things like that.
Well, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just that you mentioned that, because actually our biggest theater locally is owned by a private family-owned company that owns like 3 theaters around. Like one's here, one's in, I think, Delaware. There's another one in Maryland, I think. But they're all big complexes. I mean, our local one has an IMAX, and we also have another thing starting around here, which is theaters that offer dining as well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of turning into sort of a big thing. So I think some of that's coming back. You plan a date night, you go out for a nice meal, a movie, you watch the movie, you sit there at a table and eat it while the movie plays. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is, and I have one. I have one that is located. It's a local chain, right? That is like you just described. It's a local chain, family owned, and they have not just the theaters, which have beautifully comfy couch seats with lots of legroom, so you can kick your feet out and the whole 9 yards. But they have a restaurant built in. They have a bowling alley built in. They have a bar. They have a video game arcade, and they have laser tag at some of the locations. Not all, but some. So it's like if you want to go there and have a family experience, or even a date night. Can you imagine going bowling, having a meal, and seeing a movie with a date? That's a complete evening right there. And you don't have to go anywhere. You go one place, and you could even get an Uber there and back. Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's there for everybody, and that entertainment is probably highly valued. Of course, we also have a theater that's attached to their own pickleball court here in a couple of locations. That's a different chain, and that's also family owned. But I think that the change there with like things like Alamo Draft House, which is the concept you're describing with a restaurant and fully served meal and all of that. I think that concept really helped push theaters forward. So it pushed the movie experience forward. At the same time, there's nothing better than sitting in an IMAX theater on the biggest screen possible to see a film that's shot in 70 millimeter or more, right? And just marvel at like being surrounded by whatever it is. And the best way to see Godzilla -1 was in IMAX. I don't care what anybody says. And -1 color, also the best place to see that was IMAX. So there's that. But I think the theater experience is one of the key things that's missing now, and that's why it was such a big focus over NATO. This last NATO, which they're changing their name, by the way, the National Association of Theater Owners is changing their name to something else. I don't remember what it is.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the other NATO.
No. And I think that's why they're changing their name, right? They don't want to be associated with that NATO. They aren't, the blue helmets aren't doing anybody any good. Lots of scandal there. But when you look at their perspective, the first day, the entire first day of the NATO convention, whatever you want to call it, they focused solely on the theater experience and what they could do to do better. I mean, AMC's spending ridiculous sums of money right now to rehab and refurb theaters or replace them outright with newer facilities. IMAX is expanding like crazy. But when you get down to it, they're only as good as the films that are being provided, and they're not getting good stuff. I mean, outside of, again, I hated to be so critical of Mission Impossible 8, right? I mean, I did a review on it. It was not widely viewed. Nobody really wanted to know much about that film that's in this audience. I don't blame them.
I'm sure it was a fine movie, but I don't know if it was a sour taste in my mouth, but when I tried to retroactively watch all the other Mission Impossibles, and I know I'm probably missing out on, I think I didn't watch 5 or 6, but I intend to. But just comparing the original Mission Impossible movie and just seeing the gradation or degradation, however one views it, like I saw Dead Reckoning, and then I just felt it went way off the original formula. Like it was just more of an action movie, and I'm like, well, I'm sorry, there's John Wick for that. I don't know. I just thought it lost its espionage heritage, if you Yeah, that's why I'm not so enthused. I was, and I'm still not enthused to watch the last one. It's more like I'll wait till it gets to whatever. But you were talking about the theater experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think FOMO needs a recalibration. And I know I'm not going to give some people we don't want to give ideas, but here they are. I think with the whole thing about accessibility, it 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 really diminishes your sense of FOMO. Or I was trained the idea of fear of loss, not missing out, but fear of loss. That once I lose that, I'm not going to get it back. So what I'm noticing with this weird sense of theater, streaming, maybe media, is that you're deadening my sense of want. Like, I don't need to see it in the theater. I can always wait for it on streaming. I don't need to get this streaming service. It's going to be on media at some point, if at all. And even if it were to go on media, the buzz about it doesn't make me want to go out and watch it. Like, did you really make, not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good, but it's just such that there isn't anything out there that makes me want to go out. There's things telling me I have to watch that in the theater, in IMAX, or if you're adventurous, try, I think it's called 4DX from Regal, where they have the picture on the walls. I still think that's kind of a gimmick, but I hope you get what I'm saying about that.
Yeah, and I like the 4DX theater idea. I always have. I like X Film. I mean, a lot of these things that have been out there in the world. The problem is that takes a very specific kind of moviegoer.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
and I also when I look at that particular experience, it is enough to drive an audience to go see something in a specific format or way. It's just are you going to pay that much to see it? And you made a good point about whether or not to see something on streaming. I mean, we can't pretend that hasn't had such an enormous impact on film. When we had the lockdowns that we had, that kept people out of theaters for the better part of a year. I mean, people weren't going. I mean, I was going, and the minute they opened up, I was one of the few locations that opened up very quickly and didn't kind of gave that 2 weeks thought process, as much of a pass as they could. But when you think about going to the theaters to see something, you didn't have a lot of return. You broke a habit that I don't think a lot of people were willing to replace. And at the same time, you had media companies try to launch these streaming services, which is what led to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but down the same thought process we had a moment ago. It led us down the same path to the cheapening of film, turning it back into television, which is what we led this conversation off with. So I think that experience, as you speak to it, is really, really important. A good friend here, Yellow Flash, you should check him out. He says that Culturecino is actually a fan of that 2016 Ghostbusters movie. Be careful. That is such a lie. You know that's a lie. Yellow Flash. I'll be watching you guys tonight. Hopefully I'm there modding too, but it's good to see you, buddy. You can check out his book, his comic book. Man, I don't know how you'd be missing it if you watch Yellow Flash regular. He's got great advertisements covering his book there from Rip Ascend, and of course we support Eric July's new distribution and helpful platform. I just want to say thanks for being here, Yellow Flash, and yeah, Ghostbusters 2016 is quite garbage. Thank you for that. Anyway,
he also commented you on Ant-Man 3.
Ant-Man 3 is quite garbage. What are you kidding me? Look, I'm the one that's railing against all these garbage MCU films. I know he's kidding. Rodimus Supreme says, you should get on Flashcast show tonight. Hey, whenever Flash wants me there, I will try to be there. I love hanging out with Flash and everybody. Yeah, Rip Ascend is 100% amazing. Yeah, and I'm one of the people that supported the very first Rip thing. I've got the all you can eat package. I'm not sure if that's what it was called, but I still have that carefully all wrapped up, and I pull it out to show people, and then I put it back all together because I'm going to keep that forever. I think it's going to be a monster. But yeah, do check that out, guys. I think you'll be impressed. Of course, a lot of the folks from G&G are also involved in books. Gary's got something coming out. I mean, let's get support for all of the creators out there going, and let's do it through one of our own. Let's do it through Eric July and Rip Ascend. So there's that. All right. Anyway, back to that. You were saying something, Morgan, about. Oh man, I lost that train of thought entirely because we just went to promote Eric July's stuff, but and Yellow Flash's stuff. But regardless, the cinema experience just needs to improve, but so does the cinema itself. You know what? I'm going to ask you this, Morgan, and then I'll ask everybody else. Are there any films you're looking forward to? Is there anything on the horizon you want to see?
I don't actually know because I don't know what's on the horizon at this moment. I did see an advertisement for How to Train Your Dragon, which might poke my interest. But other than Meg 2. Megan 2.
Megan 2. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to that. That actually was
one that piqued my interest.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too because I loved the first one. And despite the fact that Tom and I openly argued about that, but it's one of those things that I just absolutely love. Is good horror movies, and Megan was a pretty good horror movie. It had a little bit of modern garbage in it, but I think we're gonna get better. 28 years later looks good. I think another horror film. Thank you, Sin, for bringing that up. Although it has a director I'm concerned with. Let's say I'm concerned with the lady that's directing that, but there's that. Jurassic World movie. That looks great. I think it looks good. I'm skeptical, but I'm going to go see it. I didn't really like the last two. So
I am curious to see what the Superman is going to do.
Mm-hmm.
How it's going to turn out. Other than that, I'm not many movies are drawing my interest.
Yeah. I want Superman to be good, but I'm going to let you guys talk first before I go down that road any farther. Because every time I start talking about Superman, I get a lot of, accusations that I have a hate boner for that thing. I don't know. Hoov, anything you're looking forward to?
Not in particular. Haven't gotten out and saw the Mission Impossible yet. Contrary to people beating it up, I still want to go see it. So I'm probably going to get out to see that Tuesday. And other than that, I just haven't really seen anything that looks all that interesting, to be honest.
I will say this: this cat, dude, it wasn't Police Academy. All right, dude, calm down. Anyway, so I'm going to say it this way: it's not a bad movie. Mission Impossible 8, MI8, Final Reckoning, whatever you call it. It's not a bad movie. It's just I wanted so much more. I was thinking, and it's too long. The biggest strike against that movie is it's 40 minutes too long. It didn't need to be that long. And when I get a digital copy of it that I can cut into pieces into a fan cut, maybe I'll put that up somewhere on Discord or something and host it so people can see what I would have cut out of the film. Because there was a film in there that would have been streamlined, hit all the base points. It was too long because it had too much cast, trying to get everybody enough screen time, gave you a lot of nonsense and exposition vomit all over the place. So that's really my more raw thoughts about MIA. But Lester, is there anything you're looking forward to, dude?
I would say offhand, Superman, probably going to watch that in IMAX just to see I tossed a heavy question in Midnight's Edge, which was something about the lack of skill in filmmaking and making it theater worthy, going back to the question about streaming, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But I want to see what Superman will look like. I want to watch the Naked Gun movie, but would I want to watch it at one of the bigger theater outlets, whereas I can probably wait it out and watch it in my hole in the wall low budget theater, comparatively low budget, $9.60 a ticket. I guess that's still okay, but it's those are the two off the top of my head. Tron, for whatever reason, after watching the original Tron, I just had a weird taste in my mouth about watching. I think it was Tron Legacy or the sequel that came out in the mid 2000s.
Legacy. Yeah, Legacy.
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, after watching the original Tron years later, I don't know about this upcoming Tron movie that's been peddled.
So I have my reservations about Ares. So it's really not on my looking forward to list. So I understand your perspective, because as a kid, I saw Tron in the theater at a time when all this new technology was being utilized by Disney. They lost a boatload of money on that movie in its original theatrical release. Most people don't remember that because most people weren't alive then. That's an advantage of being old, right, Hoof? Anyway,
Indeed.
I think Yellow Flash probably saw it in the theaters as well. I'm not calling you old, Yellow Flash. I'm not, but look, I see that film as going to be disrupted by Jared Leto. I think that guy can't help himself, but taking over a film, even if he's barely in it, he's even despite the fact I want to see the David Ayer cut of the original Suicide Squad film. I just think Jared Leto sometimes just wrecks whatever he's in. And, vampire, whatever he plays, I think he's got some kind of poison built into his performances. And I just don't understand it. What I do understand is that Sean, the artist formerly known as John Cusack LLM, says culture loves Superman. This is a true story. Loves him. Very true. He is worried about our sexy man. So am I. I am too. I really am. I'm so worried that they're going to screw this up. You get one chance at Superman when you're launching a new Superman. One. Not everybody's going to be Dean Cain. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not everybody's Christopher Reeves. The Superman is a Boy Scout in a world that doesn't have many of them. And he always has been, even back to the Donner film, right? So when you look at that from the film side of the equation, not necessarily the books, just the film, that's the thing you need. And you need to have that to be your base for everything that goes forward in this new DC universe. I'm worried. I'm worried because the Boy Scout, the innocence, all of that, they've jumped over. And I'm fine skipping the origin story. I'm okay with that. I'm even okay with a relationship already developed with Lois Lane. I'm okay with that. I am less okay with the menagerie of other characters, including Crypto, that I think the audience is going to be playing catch up on. A lot of the characters being introduced, unless you were a comic book person, haven't really been well represented in anything else, whether it be television or film. And therefore, there's no touchstone there for the normies. And one of the things that you need people like myself, Yellow, Flash, Tom, Paulie. You need Gary, Nerdrotic. You need, this handful of people. You need even the gamers and everybody else that are into films like Hypnotic and others. You need these people to be engaged in your product to help drive word of mouth. So you need those people. That's people like me. And you need the normies. Because the normies, believe it or not, are going to be driven by people that pay attention to all of these streamers. But I mean, even before we were all doing this and before there was a market for it, before there was even YouTube, the people that were really into these characters drove word of mouth to the theaters, which drove the normies to the theaters. Word of mouth is the most important thing. It's the reason why something like Top Gun Maverick was so successful. It was word of mouth for that film. That's what led it to 1.4 billion. Well, it's you think about this. Every success that Disney has been able to collect, which aren't many these days, let's be honest, but anyone that they've been able to collect was driven by word of mouth, which means they got to the normies to get them to go to the film. And how did they get there? Well, they honored the people that were the super fans, the people that were already well engaged in the content. And of course, a lot of people aren't going to dive into the minutia, like those of us who, read the books, got into the original films, all of that, right? George Reeves and everything else. Anybody who's got a history with the character, that's what drives people to the cinema.
Well, the interesting thing as you start relaying all of this info, I just keep thinking, as I got to rewatch Star Wars, apparently the theatrical release, timelessness. When did greatness, legacy, timelessness, did that somehow get clumped into some degree of toxic masculinity nobody wants to talk about? Because as I relayed, when I came in contact with Star Wars, you saw it as a kid in the theater. I saw it as a kid growing up in the early mid 80s, I think past the VHS or even network television. And yet I think they were still selling toys around 1987 where somehow we were, and nobody wants to even attempt greatness and timelessness. And I know people will get their curmudgeons about John Wick. And I remember a guy at church saying, all you need to do is watch the first John Wick. In some ways, he is right, because there's only, again, it goes back to a weird devaluation of this and that. Like, we do need to develop an organic scarcity that, because with the widespread availability of information and media, there's no reason, no compelling. Like, for every Godzilla -1, there are maybe 9 to 10, maybe 20. I don't know how wide the ratio is. But for every Godzilla -1, there's probably 10 to 20, maybe more. You might want to say utter garbage, right? But it's interesting how, I would even say, amid all of that, Gran Turismo was a pleasant surprise.
Yes.
And particularly because this is one thing I got from Film Threat's review of Karate Kid Legends, and probably why I still will not watch it. Like, that Jaden Smith Karate Kid or Kung Fu Kid, that is not canon to me. It's just an attempt, and why bother? And then the one thing you talked about, Mission Impossible, where you can cut out 40 minutes, I swear, it's somehow filmmakers forgot the art of the flashback. Studios like to think they want to rein in their budgets. Why spend hundreds of millions of dollars to shoot an entire movie to provide a backstory that you could have provided in maybe 5 to 10 minutes of footage at a time for a single movie? That's one thing I noticed when it comes to, like, how they could have done Star Wars better, if I were to say something like that. When they talked about, why are we having a prequel trilogy? You couldn't have done a simple flashback sequence? Like, if they could do montages to go forward, can't you do a montage to go backwards? I mean, is that so hard? But I think the main thing for me is, why is it films like Star Wars still resonating with me decades later?
Timelessness. That's it. I mean, you put your finger on it from the very beginning, right? And you hit one of the films that I started the whole show with, which is Star Wars, right? They don't have that kind of storytelling anymore. Honestly, film cinema now is more like, high definition, high frame rate, high refresh rate soap operas. And I don't think people are that engaged when you go to the theater. I mean, to be fair, I think laser projection is actually going to hurt most films going forward. The depth, because of the celluloid, and the grain, because of the celluloid of film, really added something to films that I don't think we appreciate as much as we should. The timelessness that you mentioned, that's absent from storytelling, because they're always inserting some kind of narrative message in it. At least they have been since about I would say 2005, but I'll allow people to push that out to 2008. Right. And it's when politics started to infest its way into culture, when we started to commoditize things that, well, frankly, it almost disappeared, and tried to promote them as being a reality that we lived in. And I'm talking, of course, about racism and other things. I think that those were largely reinvented all over again, and they changed the definition of words in order to try to, weasel their way into an idea that we had these problems. We didn't. We don't. Stop manufacturing it. If you don't have it, don't try to supply it. And that's what's been going on. And again, it's all done in the name of politics to divide people. They need wedge issues, so they invent them. Nobody has a better idea. It's weird. This is something I've noticed in a lot of political campaigns, even localized ones. You don't have a better idea. They're not running on ideas. They're running on tribalism, and they're running on things that truly don't exist. And it's all being in things that are being forced into our world, because the only way they can try to differentiate themselves from somebody else is to fabricate something. How about just have a better idea? So anyway, that didn't mean to get onto a political tangent. I'll just say that that's the reason that we don't have timelessness in stories anymore. It's one of the reasons why I'm excited for Yellow Flash's book, because, you're going back into war comics and in an era that I really appreciated. And, you're building on a story that from actual conflict. It's something that I want us to eliminate, but it's something that society was largely built on and with was war. We're trying to get out of the war business now. We have a lot of other places we're going to have conflict and are having conflict. So I'm grateful that we're starting to see that in the comics industry, which means we may actually see that in the television and film industry, where we have stories based on realities and not fabrications and narratives. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Guys, I'm going to give you the last word here. We got about 12 minutes to get this wrapped up and get over to Salty Nerd, although I don't see their show live, which worries me. I wonder if they remembered to post it or if they're taking the week off and I didn't know it. But yeah, I don't see it. It's very strange. Regardless, what do you think the future is of film? Do you think film's going to survive a streaming era that people are now, opting out of, with the participation and the churn of these streaming services starting to rise? And the lack of participation, I should say, with shows like The Last of Us season 2 and things like that falling off a cliff. What do you think the future holds for film? And do you think that streaming will supplant it or no?
I don't think streaming will supplant it, largely because I'm starting to see a lot of people push back against this virtual life that we've adopted, where everything is on the phone, it's on the computer, it's just not real. It's virtual. People want to actually get out and do things. So those activity centers, like you mentioned earlier, where they have like films and restaurants and bars and bowling alleys, those kind of destination things, I think, will save film. But I think you're going to see film change from being the kind of business it has been. I think you're going to see a lot more popularity of like South Korean films. I think you're going to see the industry probably offshore a bit more. I think we're going to see some more like foreign films that appeal to the American market, especially like in the action adventure stuff. South Koreans are really doing some cool stuff in that.
Lester?
So I got.
Yeah, Lester?
Well, I just hope that studios and the people working for them putting together these films, that they're not afraid of greatness, because I think that's what a lot of studios are. they're apparently afraid of greatness, and I think in some ways the creatives are. Streaming has a place. I don't think it's going to go away, but I would I would like to think that if we have theater-worthy films, as long as we can say, yeah, this is worth going to the theater, you'll see more people go to the theater. Like I know there were days when I gone out and watched Deadpool and Wolverine. It was a pretty packed theater, and I was glad to see that. Though I'm not too big on crowds, but I do appreciate knowing when things are crowded. It means that there's a lot of buzz. There's a lot of eagerness to watch a given film, whatever that film happens to be. At least as a society, we don't have problems getting together and enjoying a film together, whether we're talking the newest movie or watching a throwback like Fast Times at Ridgemont High or The Goonies. We just want good movies.
And you know what? That resonates, because consider this: we've seen a lot of films come back out, like Return of the Jedi, right?
Yeah.
And that performed like gangbusters. We're seeing more and more of these things. But Morgan King, I'm going to let you have the final word on this subject. I'm going to drop a poll real quick that is not here on the stream, but that's already been done by Exhibitor Relations, and then we're going to scoot out. Morgan, what do you think? Do you think films are on the way out, streaming's on the way in, or vice versa?
I think streaming's definitely going to be on the way out sooner than people think. I think it's like, oh, we went to streaming because it got rid of the cable. Then streaming decided to become cable, and people are going to go, no, we don't want cable again, and then leave. Yeah. But I do want to make a point on one of the things you said about timelessness.
Yeah.
I recently watched a video from Literature Devil.
Lit Devil. Love that guy. Yeah.
Most recent one, The Last Jedi. Is The Last Jedi good or still bad? And one of the things he brought up in that is it strayed away from the hero's journey formula of storytelling, where you have the hero start off, then he goes through his arc where he gets temptation. If he goes bad or goes good, stays good, all that stuff. Filmmakers, studios need to stick with a story method like that to make sure things stay timeless.
Understood. Yeah, I'm with you, and I think that straying away from the hero's journey started with J.J. Abrams' first film, because there was nothing was earned by anybody in that. And if anything, it gave a not very graceful exit to Harrison Ford as Han Solo. Yeah. And I think that the second film was a complete disaster, and that didn't aid the third film at all. In fact, somebody described this accurately years ago, saying it was kind of a battle between directors, because you allowed the directors to insert visions into what Star Wars is that weren't, oriented or originating from the original story or storytelling. And I think that contributed to the collapsing box office of something that should have been an escalating ramp became a deceleration ramp to the point of losing half of the box office revenue by the third film. That's a lot. All right, real quickly, this is from our friends at Exhibitor Relations. This is courtesy of Valiant Renegade, who posted this out there. But as you can see here, the highest grossing movie worldwide this July. This is a poll. How strong is your box office? Well, looks like Jurassic World Rebirth is the winner there at 45%. Superman at 42%. And the craptastic Four First Steps, 13%. 13%, guys. Now, mind you, my gut reaction to this all along was that this film was going to fail. After seeing every single version of the trailer, teasers, clips, etc., and even some of the behind the scenes things that are floating around, I'm not excited about this. And apparently 1,956 people aren't either. That tells you an awful lot. And if you're looking for this poll, go check out my friend Valiant Renegade. This is his post. This should absolutely terrify Disney Marvel. They were warned for almost a year.
I want to toss this out there real quick. What's the batting average on these Fantastic Four
Not good.
swings? I think they're like at 0 because I don't recall any good Fantastic Four movie that
I think
yeah.
I think
Go
if
ahead.
no, Lester, real quick, if you've seen the Corman film way back when that didn't actually get officially released, if you've seen that, you're gonna feel like that was more authentic, despite the lack of special effects and costuming and everything else, because it was a cheap film. The first one with Jessica Alba and that unknown guy that played Richards. That one was acceptable, but by the time the sequel came around, they'd already jumped the shark. It's hard to do that comic book. It's hard. It's just hard to do it, and nobody's cracked that nut yet. And they didn't crack the story with this one. And this one is just different parts of regurgitation that get you from point A to point B in Marvel's, grand story rather than anything significant. And if they stick true to the what do they call it? The mid-credit scene that we saw at the end of Thunderbolts, if that stays true to the failure that essentially was represented there, I think they've got problems. I don't know. But anyway, I just want to say this is probably one of the funnest high roller streams we've done in a long time. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being high rollers. Lester, you've been here a very long time. And Hoove, you've been here, a year now, 13 months, I think, it's the accurate count. And Morgan King's going on, I think, almost 4 years. So there you are. So you guys are part of the bigger team, including Mexican Iron Man and many others. Mikey here complained, despite the fact that in my live streams for the last month, at the bottom and in the description of every single live stream, along with the stories and oftentimes the story sources, it is said that on the last Saturday of every month we'll have a high roller stream, and on the first Saturday of every month we will have a member stream. So you've had a month of notice, Mike. I'm sorry you can't read a calendar. I know this much. I have the greatest mods and the greatest members and the greatest supporters in the world. You guys are the best. All of you Culturians, you're much appreciated. And for those of you who watch today, just know that these are some of the people that make it go. So I want to say thank you to Hoove, thank you to Lester, thank you to Morgan, and thank you to all of you for being there to watch us. Any final thoughts? You have an elevator speech, Hoove. You want to give one?
Not especially. I thought it was a good time. It was a good discussion, I think, overall. I'd kind of like to know, Culture, what's your favorite movie, man?
Oh, you're going to ask me this. It depends on my mood.
Yeah.
It's a toss-up between the original Star Wars, A New Hope, and Empire Strikes Back. It really honestly depends on my mood. And if I'm answering comedically, which I often do, Showgirls, best movie ever made. And I want to say thanks to Zombie Box Reviews. Andy is a huge supporter, a great mod, and a good friend. So you can check out his channel as well. Thank you for the compliment on the stream. Yeah, I will. I'm going to do my exercises. I've been sitting in a single position for far too long. We're going to try to get me to 100% healthy, so I absolutely will. Thank you. I appreciate the support and the reminder. I got a million moms and dads, and I don't mind it. Lester, your elevator speech, my friend.
Well, you talked about favorite movies. I would say I've got this from an old housemate. The more depressing, the better. So offhand, I have to go with the Donnie Yen film with Sammo Hung, who, hot take, Sammo Hung is better than Jackie Chan. I will say no more.
Can't argue with you. And I have to tell you, I think we're going to see something special out of the spinoff series coming out of the Wick universe, speaking of John Wick. Ooh. And finally, our good friend Morgan King, your 30-second elevator speech on our way out the door.
Well, if I was going to go with my favorite movie, it would have to be some of the newer DC animated stuff. Like World or Justice League World War.
All right, I was like, what? Oh, well, there you go.
Superheroes, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Justice League World War II, that was fun. Highly recommended if you haven't seen them. Yeah.
Oh, and apparently I mixed up my description. I wonder if I put it differently on other descriptions. I don't know. I always thought, anyway, regardless, High Rollers is going to be the final Saturday of the month. So if it's not right, I'll fix it. Thank you, Six.
Oh.
Six is always on top of it, trying to hold me.
Before I forget,
me humble.
The title of that Donnie and Sammo Hung film, because they've done other movies, but that one I'm talking about, Killzone in America. Watch the uncensored version if you can, because I heard they cut out some scenes that really tie into the story. But yes.
There you go. Well, I will definitely be on the lookout for that, and be on the lookout for a rare known humorous commodity known as ice pirates. Let me know what you think of that. On that note, we are out of here. Thanks for being here on the High Rollers, and thank you to my High Rollers for being there as well. Be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya for real.